believers, non-believers, unaffiliated believers, sort of believers, even you think I'm a believers, welcome. All my non-university unstudents, welcome to the Uncensored Unprofessor. Do you ever think to yourself, I want more out of my Christian faith? Well, this is a show for you who want to invite God into your minds. We all know to say, Jesus lives in my heart. But does he live in your mind, in your thinking? Today there are mountains of emoters out there, those who present their own feelings as the basis for Christianity. But those of us who believe truth exists, we need a deeper foundation. Emotions fade and change quickly. No, we need truth, rooted truth. The UU can help you grow in your Christian processing of reality. This is part 2 of my series on the common good, and today's topic, social media pornography. Have you ever responded to someone's Facebook post, or maybe somebody responded to your own post, and then kaboom! It exploded into a red-hot social media flame. You know what a media flame is, right? A social flame is, per Technomedia, it's a hostile online interaction that involves insulting messages or flames between users, where there is a mix of people with differing ideologies from different cultures. End quote. It's a social flame. It gets hot real fast. Well, I just endured such an experience. And I'm going to recount the story for you succinctly, close enough to convey the gist, as a bridge to other more principled reflections. Oh, and please know in telling you this, I'm no victim. It's not the first time I've seen a social media flame, and it won't be the last. But I'm going to tell you this story because it so well exemplifies a broader social dynamic that I believe is insidious. A few days ago, I came across a friend's linked article on Facebook where a pastor was challenging evangelical pastors to push back against white nationalism. I opened the article and read it, and then I thought, fair enough. Obviously, no healthy believer should support racism, but then I wondered, hey, are evangelical pastors in fact promoting white nationalism? And so I asked that very question on the page. Are evangelical pastors in fact promoting white nationalism? I've seen this accusation hurled about, and I'm curious to know the evidence, see the reasoning. Now at first, one fellow posted Galatians 3:28 to me, right? Paul wrote, "There's no longer Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female, for you're all one in Christ Jesus." It's a fantastic verse. It was radical then, and it's probably just as radical today. And then the gent who posted that verse kindly realized that it didn't answer my own question. Then a woman, we're going to call her woman number 1, and no, she wasn't my friend who made the original post. Woman number 1 chimed in and wrote, "White evangelicals promote white nationalism when they conflate American patriotism with Christianity, when they fail to criticize their government, and when they won't denounce Donald Trump." So my response to her was, do you believe that all Christians who voted for Trump are racists? And do you think it's Christian to pretend to know what was in their hearts? Thanks for thinking with me. And she answered, if they do not denounce Trump, they are complicit in his overt racism. And then I responded, but if they didn't know or believe he was a racist before the election, does that mean they are racist today? Now, before she could respond, another woman, I'm going to call her number 2, jumped in. You simply must denounce Trump as a racist, or else you are a racist. So I answered her. Do you really believe you can know people's hearts? The scriptures repeatedly warn against pretending to see as God sees. Shouldn't we be more gracious? And so she, woman number 2, responded, I don't know their hearts, but I can see their actions. They are supporting a racist, a man who foments racial tension, hates immigrants, talks about an invasion, and supports white nationalists. Then another woman, we'll call her woman number 3, she entered the string, and she said that white evangelicals can support President Trump is inexcusable. He clearly is a xenophobe, he gives a pass to white nationalists, and he openly opposes black people. Well, my listener, you know how these flames go, right? Along the way, people are liking one another's posts, which is sort of the secular equivalent to an old Baptist amen or a Pentecostal preach. So I could tell this thread had just gone from ice cube to solar hot in about 13 minutes. So what should I have done? I should have recognized that I just got surrounded by 3 and hit the eject button. I failed to recognize that these flames heat up fast, and this one was heating up. And goodness, 1 versus 3 is always bad math, right? But what did I do? I posted this. Well, I think there may be a long list of reasons why people voted for Trump. Maybe folks in West Virginia and Ohio voted for him because he was the better bet versus Clinton on restarting the coal mining industry. Or maybe folks in other states voted for him because the steel industry had taken a beating under the prior administration and they were hoping to get their jobs back. Or maybe some people voted for Trump out of their wallet. They wanted the international market to pay bigger retirement dividends. Or maybe there were Christians who voted for him because they believed he'd be a better proponent of religious freedom than Hillary. Or still further, what if there were Christians who voted for him because they hoped he'd be a better pro-life president than Hillary? Or what if some voted for Trump because they thought he'd put constitutional originalists on the Supreme Court? Or finally, maybe there were people who just simply didn't like Hillary Clinton, and so faced with a binary choice, they voted for Trump. But I just don't think it's fair to pretend that 63 million people were then, or are today, racists. Well, that line of reasoning surely carried the conversation, right? Yeah, and I have some oceanfront property in Kansas I'd like to sell you. No, yet another woman number 4, chimed in. Anyone who won't even recognize that Trump is a racist means that person is complicit, a racist. Now, I'm sorry to interrupt my own story, but I learned 36 years ago in an undergrad speech class that you don't grant the premise. You need to keep the dialogue about what is your principled point, not your conversation partner's redirect. And especially you don't engage ad hominem, right, which is Latin for to the man or personal. You don't engage personal arguments. So if you accept the premise, in this case that it is 100% clear that all evangelicals are white nationalists, racists who don't know it, if you accept that premise, you'll be arguing on grounds that aren't the focus of your own reasoning, your own contribution to the dialogue. And, well, I don't even need to say this, but if you engage ad hominem arguments, you only lower yourself to that petty level. So here was my next post to woman number 3. So, by your logic, are there any white evangelicals who are not racists? And would you say that all black evangelicals are racist too? Then woman number 2 says to woman number 1, well, this just goes to show you that even highly educated Christians can be racists. Then woman number 1 responds to woman number 2, yes, even highly educated Christians can be deceived. I wonder if he gets his information from Fox News, which is not a real news outlet. Oh, the emotional volume was heating up. The personal remarks were mounting. With repetition, I was being implicitly called a racist by 4 women and 3 of them who I don't even know. It's sort of like the church lady from Saturday Night Live, right? That's a fun place to be. Then woman number 3 posts to me, I don't think it's fair to put all this in the theoretical. There are millions of blacks who are worried if they are going to be attacked tomorrow by men wearing MAGA hats. That we are talking this way speaks to our own status and privilege. So I said, well, I'm sorry to disagree. I just don't think it's fair to dismiss people of color like that. They are perfectly capable of thinking theoretically. God bless you and your family. And then the social media volcano began to spill forth its lava. Woman number 1 said something like, anyone who thinks like you are is complicit in the racism of Donald Trump. I mean, the Mueller report made his obstruction clear. Don't you realize Trump is a social terrorist? Don't you realize those who support Trump are condoning his terrorism? Woman number 4 says to me, we used to look up to you as a professor. You should be ashamed. Woman number 2 said, if you don't denounce Trump, you are complicit. And how dare you pretend to speak for black people? You said we shouldn't judge, but you are judging blacks. Christians who don't condemn Trump are racists. Christians who voted for Trump are racists. So here is my last post to woman number 2, my last post altogether. Wow, thanks for seeing my heart so clearly. Because you've called me a racist, I can no longer continue in this dialogue. Now, fortunately, my wife and I were on our way to meet family, so I stopped posting, stopped responding. But, I'd just been implicitly, repeatedly called a racist, a deceived white nationalist, an educated white nationalist, and I was complicit in terrorism. And to them, I supported all of Trump's policies. I was an insult. I dared to question the original article's premises. By asking questions, I dared to challenge a narrative now established by Lord Zeitgeist. And really, how dare I? Just who did I think I was to try to ask questions on behalf of 63 million folks? Well, the evening went by, and as it became later at nighttime, I went and I deleted my thread on that entire post. Because the subsequent posts had become too emotionally hot. It had devolved from my asking a question into an emotional volcano, a social media flame. The anger, the heat, it was wild. And so I just thought it wiser to douse the flame, delete the thread. What happened in all that? Because, as I immediately realized, this wasn't about me, not directly, not really. And you should know, for the show today, this really isn't about my 4 Facebook interlocutors, the 4 other posters. It's not about them either. And today I'm not going to even discuss the philosophy that was raining down on me. I've done a show on the non-religious religion. Maybe I'll do another one again later. For today, I'm going to keep it less philosophical and more psychological. There is a pre-existing latent anger that waits to launch. Does it hope to launch? It looks to go after somebody who challenges the progressive narrative, the now dominant power narrative. There's a certain personality profile that would have sledgehammered anybody who asked whether all 63 million Trump voters are racists. At the social media platform level, what was this about? Well, I'm going to tell you. What? Yes, I realize I'm attempting to do something unique with this podcast. Get Christians to purposefully turn their brains on. This isn't church. There's no altar call. It isn't school. There are no final exams. It's just a strange little show about thinking in light of Christ, framing the world in light of His truth and beauty. You want to join the team? Pledges at Patreon are enormously helpful. What this flame was is an example of what I'm going to call social media pornography. Let me explain it to you. And parents, you may want to have your children leave the room. Sexual pornography is addicting. I hardly need to tell you that. And it's addicting for several reasons. First, it's exciting. It's exciting to see someone's naked body. For most men, a woman's naked body. Men like to look. Men like to see the female form. It's exciting. And sexual pornography is addicting, number two, because it's alluring. It's alluring to look at a woman that you wouldn't normally get to look at. There's a sense of the exotic, the forbidden, sort of like touching the candle flame or stealing a cookie from grandma's cookie jar. Sexual porn is alluring. Third, sexual porn involves chemical processes in the brain, down through the brain stem and into the body. The brain, the hormonal system, releases opioids when we look at pornography or when people experience orgasm. Now mix the opioids of orgasm with the viewing of naked bodies, especially perhaps naked bodies in suggestive and provocative positions, and you have a real powerful intoxicant. Fourth, sexual pornography is addicting because it's done in secret. There's no one there to look at you, make eye contact with you. So there's no immediate sense of shame or guilt, embarrassment. It's a secret indulgence. And that probably makes the allure of it greater, right? Well, I'll let you decide. Fifth, sexual pornography is addicting because it objectifies the naked person. Instead of viewing her as a creation of God, sexual porn teaches us to view her as an object for our gratification, pleasure, manipulation. Or put differently, it depersonalizes the person viewed. And my good listeners, those 5 features are also involved in what I'm calling social media pornography. Let me explain myself. Fine fellow, explain yourself. Let me explain myself. First, social media pornography is addicting because it's exciting. How fun to be able to score rhetorical points against someone else. How fun to be able to shame or guilt or insult someone you sort of know or even whom you've never met. There's no penalty and it's very exciting. Secondly, sexual media porn is addicting because it's alluring. Together with your friends, it's alluring to pound on, rhetorically speaking, someone you sort of know or have never met. There's no penalty, and so it's exciting. You can pat each other on the back. You can like one another's remarks, post emojis. You get to enjoy being part of a noble posse with others. It's alluring, and there's a tiny bit of emotional danger involved that has a profound psychological effect. Let's go to point number 3. Social media pornography involves chemical processes in the brain, down through the brainstem, down into the body. Now, the CEOs at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, they positively know that your brain releases little shots of dopamine when you get a like, or a happy emoji, or read someone saying nice things about your picture, post, recipe, story. In fact, the CEOs at those social media platforms intentionally build in mechanisms to foster the hormonal experience that your brain feels, that your body feels when you get likes or online affirmation. It involves chemical processes. Fourth, social media porn is addicting because it, like sexual pornography, is done in secret. You're in a safe space. You're not in church with dozens of believers. You're not in a class with other students. You're not at work where you'd be fired for using the computer system to view sexual pornography. It's secret. There's no public cost, no monetary cost, no obvious sociological payment to be made. It's free, baby, free. It's secret. Fifth, social media pornography is alluring and addicting because it objectifies the person you're arguing with, the one you're shaming, guilting. You're not looking into the green eyes of the other person. You're not reading their agitated body language. You don't know their life story. You don't know if they're at a low point in life. You don't know who they're busy serving. You usually have no way of determining if they're being genuine or just trolling you or whether they're sincere. It objectifies them into an it. It parallels greatly what's going on in sexual pornography. But you guys, here's the real difference between sexual pornography and social media pornography. Number 6, with social media pornography, you can get over on the other person. Shame them, make them look the monster. There's a little taste of power. Hey, do you remember those Fun Dip candy sugar packs? You'd open it up and you'd lick the sugar stick and you'd stick it into the envelope full of flavored sugar, put it in your mouth, and you'd get a fun mix of flavor. Getting over on people in positions of power on social media, it's like dipping your fun stick into the sugar pack. It's easy. It's immediately rewarding. You're in control of the fun stick. You're in control of the sugar envelope. You are the master of your sugary fun treat. It's a weird little dip of power. Now, undoubtedly, there are some who view sexual pornography as a kind of power move. For them, it's a way to be powerful in their imaginations, maybe over a beautiful naked woman or holy God over innocent naked little children. But for most men, it's not a power game so much as an exciting visual game. But with social media porn, you can get over on somebody. You can shame them, insult them, dehumanize. And again, here's the kicker. And I think it really goes to why and how political stuff on social media easily becomes emotional thuggery. You can get over on somebody in a position of power. What a psychological rush. You can shame a local mayor for whom you would never bother to drive over to the local city council meeting and challenge. You can dehumanize a CEO of a despised corporation with whom you'll never be in an actual room. A college administrator that you wouldn't have had the courage to challenge during a meeting, you can mock her, make her look the fool. Or, holy moly, the President of the United States of America. Now that's some sugary fun dip. You can make him look like a monkey's uncle. No, you can make him look like an ass, a racist. Oh my goodness, a terrorist. You get to have power over power. Well, sort of. Me? In real life, I've only seen one president with my own eyes. With some college buddies forever ago, we went and saw Ronald Reagan at a park in Fountain Valley. But it's obvious, right? Who among us is ever in the same space, the same location as a U.S. president? Hardly any one of us. But with social media, we can trash, insult, shame, hurl epithets, label. We can do all that from the safety, the privacy of our living room. It's magical. It's powerful. It's intoxicating. It's a veritable fun dip of power. And then weave in the sociological dynamic, the group dynamic of being able to shred a higher up together with a group of your friends, pat one another on the back, laugh together about having got over on her. Holy moly, you've hit the social media pornography jackpot. And I believe it's every bit as intoxicating, every bit as habit-forming as is sexual porn. Social media trolls are addicts. What do you say? Social media trolls are addicts. And as my wife and I have learned, when you're dealing with an addict, you're not dealing with a healthy person. You don't believe me? Here's an excerpt from a 2019 online article entitled, "This is Your Brain on Instagram." It was written by a woman named Kelly McSweeney at Northrop Grumman. I'm going to quote to you a couple paragraphs. According to an article by Harvard University researcher Trevor Haynes, when you get a social media notification, your brain sends a chemical messenger called dopamine along a reward pathway which makes you feel good. Dopamine is associated with food, exercise, love, sex, gambling, drugs, and now social media. And when rewards are delivered randomly, as with a slot machine or a positive interaction on social media, and checking for the reward is easy, the dopamine triggering behavior becomes a habit. Spending too much time on social media isn't just a bad habit, it can have real consequences. Science shows that we are basically carrying around little dopamine stimulators in our pockets, so it's not surprising that we are constantly distracted by our phones. Just like a gambling or substance addiction, social media addiction involves broken reward pathways in our brains. Social media provides immediate rewards in the form of attention from your network for minimal effort through a quick thumb tap. Therefore, the brain rewires itself, making you desire likes, retweets, emoji, applause, and so on. According to TED Talks, 5 to 10% of internet users are psychologically addicted and can't control how much time they spend online. Brain scans of social media addicts are similar to those of drug-dependent brains. There's a clear change in the regions of the brain that control emotions, attention, and decision-making. And when a person posts a picture and gets positive social feedback, it stimulates the brain to release dopamine, which again rewards that behavior and perpetuates the social media habit. End quote. Now, you guys, for a moment, let's leave aside the spiritual, personal, moral nature of all this. In other words, what it does to people's souls, their interior wiring. Instead, as Christians today, those embracing a Christ-centered worldview, let's think about this in terms of the common good. I believe this is just as harmful to society as sexual pornography. It might, it might even be worse because it's carried on in a sugary fun dip package of disrespect for authority, dehumanization of those we oppose, and insular arrogance. And most all of us are guilty of this. Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy. This is not an exclusively progressive thing or an exclusively conservative thing. Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy. It's a human thing. The Bible's right about us. We're humus. We're from the dirt. And yeah, you can positively feel better for that little social media pornography opioid hit. That dopamine dip is a fun dip of sugary experience. But the problem is, as with all actions, it involves a diminishing of returns. You have to spend longer and longer online to get that dopamine, to feel the same rush as the earlier times, the earlier years. So maybe, in this instance, going after the president, maybe going after a big and public fish is even more intoxicating. Does it supply a larger opioid rush? I don't know. Oh, golly. As I think of it, is this partly why the suicide rate of young people is soaring? Because they burned out? They can't get any more satisfying opioid hits? Their fun dip sugar pack ran out? What a horror to even think about. But I'm touching on a real dynamic here. Social media porn. Me describing this helps us to understand why you have felt so danged burned when you've been social media flamed. There are sociological dimensions at work in those flames. Social media flames run hot for a reason. Judgment is involved, and a social historical topic quickly devolves into personal remarks, ad hominem attacks by people you can't see, by people who are quite possibly getting a psychological erection an opioid rush, all the while they trash others. And especially if in your posts you buck up against Lord Zeitgeist, there are forces that want you to feel miserable, want to level you, flatten you. Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. And of course, we need to turn this around. We do this. You may have done this. In years past, I sure have. It's not the heart of Christ. Lord, forgive our sins. Christ, have mercy. Hey, the success of this show significantly rests with my listeners, so I need to issue my sincere thanks to John C., Bobby J.V., Kareth M., Katie P., and Charlie J. for your Facebook shares and glowing blurbs. You are dear helps to me. Thanks so much. You, my listener, you can also help me greatly by subscribing at iTunes or leaving a review at iTunes. Thanks so much. And then, of course, Christians, we need to be mindful of our social media etiquette. Now, if you dare to step into the flames, you still need to keep your wits, be professional, refuse to devolve into ad hominem attacks. Think twice before you hit that post button. And really, you just don't need to have the last word. Maybe rejecting the impulse to have the last word is 21st century for turning the other cheek. We need to exhibit Christian character and grace regardless of the heat of the social media flames. No, don't be cowards. Don't lose heart. But we need to extend grace nevertheless. And again, what about the common good in all of this? I really believe that social media pornography disintegrates society, erodes trust, makes people feel less safe, less at peace. But there's more. On the one hand, I believe freedom of speech is a God-given ability. We should never ban freedom of speech. Jesus allowed his disciples to say really stupid things to him. And people should be allowed to say ugly things to one another. But it just grinds my gears that the social media platforms are banning conservative thought. And that's one concern. We ourselves should not foster distrust, but we do have to live with some ugliness if we want to uphold freedom of speech. At another level, thinking about the common good, I know this, and some of you told me privately and some of you told me online, it's just better not to engage political social topics on social media platforms. But then I wonder, isn't that sort of caving in from the get-go? Is it really the case that we can't inject some reason, some critical mindedness, some logic when it comes to things public? Because if that's the case, if millions are, air quotes, getting flamed into silence, then those using the most shrill and ugly tactics may eventually control the government, the levers of power. If committed Christians are simply supposed to shut up, then how do we go about being salt and light within the political realm? Well, I'd be interested to hear your answers. You can email me at uncensoredunprofessor@gmail.com. Thanks for thinking with me about social media pornography. We should check our hearts. Let's be mindful of how insidious and damaging this dynamic can be. And I'll end this way. Oh, Jesus, thank you for your forgiveness, your grace, your light and delight and beauty. Your way is beautiful. For the love of society, turn your brains on, everybody.